Hey, welcome to our Bible study here at Influence Church. This is our Christmas special, and we are talking from the topic today of the truth behind Christmas. So grab a notepad so you can take some notes. And if you have not done it as yet, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. If you missed any of our studies over this year, last year, what you can do is you can go to our YouTube channel, you can click under the videos tab, and you can rewatch any of our previous studies. So in this study today, we're going to be looking at the historical background, the origins of Christmas, as well as talking about the history behind some of the significant things that we see in modern day Christmas, including we're going to be talking about Santa, right? Ho, ho, ho. All right, that's probably too much. So we are going to be talking about Santa Claus in this study and the origins of Santa Claus and many other things around the Christmas season. So if you're ready, let's jump into it. If you have kids that are around under the age of 12, you might want to cover their ears. We're going to get to the truth about Christmas today. So many people say that Christmas is a pagan holiday, and so there are some communities, Christian and even non-Christian, that do not celebrate Christmas at all because they say the origins are pagan. They say that Jesus was not born on December the 25th. And then we have the opposite where the mass majority of our society celebrates Christmas in one form or the other. Some mainstream forms of Christianity, or most mainstream forms of Christianity, celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And today we're going to kind of unravel both sides and see what biblically we can be guided by and how we should celebrate, if we should celebrate Christmas at all. All right, so we're getting to the truth. The truth is important. The truth will set us free. So, historical background. So, journey with me as we talk about the historical background of Christmas. So, in Rome, where winters were not as harsh as those in the far north, there was a holiday in honor of Saturn, which is the god of agriculture. And this holiday was called Saturnalia. Now, this holiday was celebrated in the beginning of the week leading to the winter solstice and continued for a full month. Saturnalia was a hedonistic time, so it was a time of revelry, a time of where you can basically do whatever you want. And during this time, they would use food and drink, and they would have plentiful. And the normal Roman social order was that everything was kind of turned upside down for this period, this celebration. So for a month, enslaved people were given temporary freedom and treated as equals. Businesses, schools were closed so that everyone could participate in the holiday festivals. Continuing into the history, it says that, so this, sorry, we went a little too far, right? So the historical background, this is how the original celebration around this Christmas time, this is where it started, right? With this celebration known as Saturnalia. Now, this is not Christmas, it's not the birth of Jesus Christ, but this was the celebration that people refer to as the pagan roots, right? The pagan celebration that occurred, much like that time of Carnival in Trinidad. It was a time of revelry, a time to kind of live up according to worldly standards as the end of the year was coming, as they were celebrating the winter coming to an end, and they were worshiping this god of agriculture, right? So now, how did Christmas started? The actual birth of Jesus Christ, how did that started, that celebration around end of year during Christmas time? So in the early years of Christianity, Easter was a main holiday, and the birth of Jesus was not celebrated. And in the 4th century, that church that existed during that time, the officials of that church decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday. So after Jesus ascended into heaven for at least 300 years, Christmas was not celebrated, right? 4th century means around between 300 to 480. It was around that time now where the church decides, now most likely this would have been the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, decides that they're going to host this holiday around Christmas time. So Pope Julius, so the Catholic Church, the Pope chose December the 25th, right? So the Catholic Church, the Pope chose December the 25th, and it is commonly believed that the church, the Catholic Church, now you hear me keep saying Catholic Church, right? Chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan culture known as Saturnalia festival. So we just spoke about Saturnalia, where it was worship unto the agricultural god. So historically, it is believed, right? There's not clear evidence, but it's believed that the reason why Pope Julius I chose December the 25th was to counteract the pagan celebration of Saturnalia. So remember, Saturnalia would have been going on through that end of that month, end of week, into the end of the year, and to kind of counteract the celebrations that was hedonistic, right? That was mostly mostly evil in that sense and paganistic. He instituted Christmas to kind of balance it off. So to kind of get people to start celebrating the birth of Jesus instead of this Hellenistic festival, right? Instead of this time of revelry and this thing, all these things that were worldly in terms of the principle. This is why it is believed he would have chosen this date, right? So by holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced, which we see right now in our modern day culture. It has been really embraced by the world by extension, but the trade-off by choosing this date is while the world adopted it and it's popular, it gave up the ability to dictate how it was celebrated. So this is where we come to this place now where modern day Christmas has now a mixture of a lot of pagan or worldly traditions, as well as this celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. So because they chose this day to counteract this celebration of this pagan god, the winter solstice, Saturnalia, they also had a mixture of both celebrations kind of now merging into one. So a mixture of the pagan celebration and the Christian celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. So now we're going to kind of separate these two. We're going to kind of go see what was really meant to be celebrated by the birth of Jesus Christ, what was those pagan celebrations, and even more things that were included over the years into Christmas, so that we can determine what things about Christmas we should definitely stay away from, because they don't really embrace the birth of Jesus Christ. And then we're going to answer, should we really be celebrating Christmas as Christians, since this was something that was established almost 400 years after Jesus? It was not something that was established by the early church. It was established by the Roman Catholic Church, which was mostly the Roman Empire trying to use Christianity to control the populace, not necessarily the true message of Jesus Christ being perpetuated. All right, so there were political agendas that was heavily ingrained into the Roman Catholic Church. Now, what does that leave us with, right? Let's move forward and let's answer this first question. When was Jesus actually born, right? Because the question is that, should Christians celebrate Christmas? And if we are celebrating Christmas, was Jesus actually born on December the 25th? I'm sure somebody said to you already, hey, why do you celebrate Christmas? Jesus wasn't born on December the 25th, right? So the Bible does not give the date of the birth of Jesus, but biblical scholars has approximated that Jesus would have been born between September to October, right? December is the month in question here. And this is based on the estimated time of John the Baptist, his birth, and the time that the shepherds would have stopped taking their sheep out. Now, we talked about December being that winter solstice, right? So December would have been a colder time of the year. And because of that, the shepherds would actually not take their sheep out of the caves that warmed during that December month. They would usually cut off around October month and stop taking their sheep out to graze during that time because of how cold the temperatures were. So because of that, they believe that definitely nothing past October, these shepherds would have been out when the angel came to deliver the message, a child is born, and to go and worship this child, which they did. They went to the manger scene and they worshipped the baby Jesus. So because of that information, scholars say, well, for sure it couldn't be December month, had to be somewhere October for the latest. And then based on the birth of John the Baptist, they calculated it's roughly between September to October. Now, John the Baptist was 6 months older than Jesus. We know that, the Bible tells us that. And based on the time of the prophecy given to Zacharias, and based on the season when he he would have gone into the temple and he would have then been mute for a few months. Based on those calculations, this is where biblical scholars come up now. Well, based on the 6 months difference between Jesus and John the Baptist, and based on the fact that the shepherds were there at the manger scene, biblically they were out with their sheep and they wouldn't be out during December time, they've calculated that it's roughly between September to October. But they do not know the exact date because the Bible does not tell us the exact date of the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, I feel as though that would have been some important information for the Bible to give us. I mean, the Bible gives us full genealogy of Jesus Christ from Adam to Jesus. That's a lot of information, but not the birth date of Jesus Christ, right? Even in terms of his age upon death, that is calculated. It's not really written in the Bible. The time he started his ministry at the age of 30, again, that is calculated based on information in the Bible, but it's not clearly stated. So these numbers weren't really significant for the authors of the New Testament, whether it was the four first Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or Paul the Apostle, any of the other authors, the brothers of Jesus, James, who wrote as well. It wasn't important, or they didn't see value in writing the actual birthday of Jesus Christ. So we don't know when Jesus was born, but hold on, we're not drawing any conclusions. Let's continue talking about Christmas. So we established we don't know exactly when Jesus was born, right? So moving along, another popular inclusion into Christmas is Santa Claus, right? So where did Santa Claus come from, right? The legend of Santa Claus can be traced back to a monk named Saint Nicholas, who was born in Turkey around 280 AD. Saint Nicholas gave away all of his inheritance, wealth, and traveled the countryside helping the poor and the sick, becoming known as the protector of children and sailors. St. Nicholas first entered American popular culture in the late 18th century in New York when Dutch families gathered to honor the anniversary of the death of St. Nicholas, right? So originally 280 AD. So Santa Claus actually predates the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Because the birth of Jesus Christ first started in the 4th century, between 300 and 400 AD, and St. Nicholas, this myth of St. Nicholas, first started in 280 AD. However, the celebration of Santa Claus really only started in the 18th century. So that's roughly about 300 years ago, all right? Less than 300 years ago, right? So just about that time, Santa Claus became popular, and obviously the story has been very much exaggerated, a lot of mythology, but the original story behind it comes from Saint Nicholas, who actually was someone that gave gifts and helped the poor, which was something tremendous that he did. But he was human, and obviously we know that this story, every adult, I hope, would know that this story of Santa Claus is myth, all right? No truth behind it, and it has zero relation whatsoever to the birth of Jesus Christ. None whatsoever. So Santa Claus, for me, should not be included at all in our Christmas celebrations because it has no correlation whatsoever to the birth of Jesus Christ. All right? While it was a good thing that some guy did many, many years ago, it has no reference to Jesus in any way or to the birth of Jesus in any way. All right? So Santa Claus, this is how he was included. This is where his story comes from. Continue along. Christmas trees. Now, I know a lot of folks love their Christmas trees. Where did Christmas trees first started? So let me just state it. There was no Christmas tree in the barn that Jesus was born in, all right? There was no Christmas tree there. So where did Christmas trees start from, right? So Christmas trees, or evergreens, trees that were green and flourishing, right? These trees first started to be celebrated in a lot of pagan culture. As far as can be dated in history, they would see that they would have evergreens in their homes to ward off evil spirits, to represent fertility, right? Evergreens in terms of green trees that were flourishing, right? They would usually have these types of trees in their home. When it comes to the Christmas tree now, the Christmas tree is credited to Germany, and Germany is credited with starting the Christmas tree tradition as we now know it, the 16th century, when devout Christians brought decorated trees into their homes. Some built Christmas pyramids of wood and decorated them with evergreens and candles. If wood was scarce, it was widely held belief that Martin Luther, the 16th century Protestant reformer, first added lighted candles to a tree, right? So Martin Luther, he was the one that did something very significant when it comes to us having access to the Bible, because he was the one that got the copies of the original manuscripts of the Bible and distributed it to the populace when it was actually restricted by the Catholic Church, and only the Pope and those that served in the clergy were allowed to actually have access to the Bible, right? So Martin Luther did something significant. When he did that, it changed a lot of things historically, because people were finally able, at least in Western Christianity, to see and read what the Bible actually said, right? So this means that West, East, Eastern, Western, yeah, European, American, these parts. My geography isn't so good. East, West, whatever, right? So this is what Martin Luther did, right? So in terms of being a significant person in the Christian community, he was, and he was the one that first kind of started this Christmas tree, where he used candles and placed it on a tree to celebrate Christmas. So the reason he did this is he kind of had a vision of a lighted tree during that Christmas season, and he decided that he was going to do the same thing. Does it have any direct relation to Christmas? Is it biblical in any way? No, he just decided he would do it, and well, it became even more popular in 1846 when the royal family, Queen Victoria and a German Prince Albert, were sketched in an illustrated London news standing with their children around the Christmas tree. So when they did it, that is when it really became extremely popular, right? And unlike the previous royal family, Victoria was very popular with her subjects, and what was done at court immediately became fashionable, not only in Britain, but with fashion conscious East Coast American society. So I guess we get the answer, right? It's East, not West, right? East. This is how the Christmas tree had arrived and really became something popular during Christmas time. So did it have roots in early Christianity? No, it did not. Does it have somewhat of a evil meaning behind it, or pagan roots? It does not. However, it at the same time, it is not tied to the birth of Jesus Christ in any way. It was something that Martin Luther decided to do, and while he was a Christian and a very significant person in the Christian community, um, this was something that he personally chose to do, and then people followed along. So it's not something that you have to do in celebration of Jesus Christ. Thou must have it a Christmas tree it in those home it to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. No, it's not like that. It's just something that they chose to do, and it became popular, right? So that is the Christmas tree. What else you guys want to talk about today? Right, so this is the original sketch that made the Christmas tree popular. There's Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in that sketch, right? So gift giving. When did gift giving start? Well, it started with the wise men. Gift giving started around 336 CE, right? And the date of December the 21st appeared to have become established as the day of Jesus' birth. The tradition of gift giving was tied to the story of the biblical magi's giving gifts to baby Jesus, right? So it was tied to that. It didn't start immediately after Jesus ascended into heaven. It started roughly around that same time. Christmas was established around 300 to 400 AD, right? And the giving of gifts together with the biblical magi giving to baby Jesus as the wise men, also together with the story of St. Nicholas, which is Santa Claus, a 4th century Christian bishop and gift giver, it slowly became a part of Christian celebrations in countries such as the United Kingdom. So the popularity of gift giving actually was a combination of the wise men and actually St. Nicholas, right? Not the Santa Claus story that was then perpetuated and that myth that then grew, right? So this is how gift giving came about. It came about after Jesus' birth. Where does that leave us? What does the Bible actually say about the original birth of Jesus Christ? So there was no Christmas trees. We established that. There were no Santa Claus. We established that. There were actually no gift giving on that day because the wise men did not come until 2 years later. That's when they arrived. When biblical scholars believe when Jesus was around the age of 2, that's when the wise men arrived, and it wasn't on his birthday, they brought gifts for him, right? So on his birth, that day when our Savior was born, what was actually what were the celebrations actually like, right? So the biblical account, we know that Mary was there, Joseph was there. Jesus was born in a manger. There was no room in the inn, right? So for those who insist they must have their houses clean for the birth of baby Jesus, well, he was not born in any royalty or in even a clean space, right? He was born in humility, right? You guys clean your homes, no problem, right? Um, we know that the shepherds were there biblically, and we know that the angels were there, right? Because the angels were the ones that told the shepherds to worship, to go and worship this king, and they continued in the choirs of heaven singing unto Jesus on this special day. So having angels in your house on Christmas season is kind of sound in terms of it being part of the original biblical story. Having a manger up with some shepherds there for sure. You throw your sheep or sheeps in, however you want to say it, right? Sheep, right? So those things are biblical. Wise men, they are seen a lot in the creche and the manger scene, but they were not there on the birth of Jesus Christ. They arrived much later. People kind of have merged them into the birth story, but biblically they were not there at the birth of Jesus Christ, right? They did give gifts, but they weren't there. Did the shepherds bring gifts? No, they didn't. They brought worship unto him, and I believe that is the most important thing. That is what God values, our worship unto him. What did the angels do? They worshipped the king that was born as well. So this is what the biblical account says, all right? So like I said about the wise men, they weren't there at the birth, and that reference is in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 2, where it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who had been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him, right? Again, they came to worship, and a form of their worship were the gifts that they bring, but they weren't there on the day that Jesus was born. So let's answer this big question now. Should Christians celebrate Christmas? We've established that the date that was selected for Christmas was not biblical. It was a decision made by the Pope, and most scholars believed historically the reason he chose that date was to counteract the celebration of the pagan celebration of Saturnalia, right? So the date is not the actual birth of Jesus. However, we don't know the actual birthday of Jesus. What we do know is that Jesus was born, biblically that was recorded, and on the day that he was born, there was a celebration. Right now, this celebration may look a lot different from how in our modern society people celebrate Christmas. And I think if we want to celebrate Christmas, then we have to actually celebrate it the way that Jesus would have wanted it celebrated, the way that biblically it's recorded to be celebrated, and the way that actually honors our Savior, his birth, right? So what did happen on that day? Angels, the choirs of the heavens, those angels sang in worship, and the angels sang in worship, and the shepherds, they went and they also bowed down and they worshiped this king. This is what I'm saying. If you're going to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, as we should do at every time and every moment, it should be a season and a day, right, that we spend in worship unto God. So if your Christmas day isn't a time to worship Jesus, then you aren't really celebrating biblical Christmas, if that's your approach. You are celebrating modern day Christmas, and that's just a perpetuated holiday that is there in our season, much like a lot of mixture of paganism and different things depending on which part of the world you live in. In Trinidad, a lot of alcoholism and revelry is included in the Christmas holiday, which is a byproduct of that celebration of Saturnalia and how that origin started, right? So when it comes to the celebration, if you are going to celebrate Christmas, it must be worship unto Jesus. Gift giving, if that's your way of celebrating your family or honoring them as it's like coming to the end of the year, fine. But when it comes to honoring Jesus, you ought to give to him in worship. The most valuable thing unto God is is worship, and worship is in different forms. You can worship God in your in verbally, you can worship God in your lifestyle, you can worship God in how you treat others, you can worship God in your giving. There are many different aspects to worship, right? The wise men, they gave gifts as a form of worship. The angels, they sang as a form of worship. The wise men, they bowed down, and that was their form of worship. So there are many different forms of worship, and that's something that I'm not going to get too much into. But what I want you to understand is, if you're going to celebrate Christmas as it was originally intended in terms of the birth of Jesus Christ, this is how you celebrate Christmas. So it's not about having that Christmas tree. It's not about Santa Claus. It's not about the decorations. It's not about the cleaning. These things actually are not in celebration of Jesus Christ. I'm not saying that you can't do those things. You can clean your house, right? No problem. You can decorate if you want it to look nice. The Santa Claus, right? But for me, I believe that Christmas is a redeemable celebration. What do I mean by that? While the historical reason for this date of December the 25th was chosen to counteract the pagan celebration, I do believe that celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ is biblical, because we see the angels celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. We see the shepherds celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And the wise men, they do celebrate the birth even though they are 2 years late. All right. So biblically, I don't see anything wrong with celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ by worshiping Jesus. All right. So I do say that it is a redeemable celebration. By redeemable, I mean that if we're going to redeem it, it means that we have to remove what is not of God, remove what is not biblical, and then we actually do what God would want us to do, or do what biblically would have been the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, right? So since we don't know the birthday of Jesus, we could celebrate it at any time. We can't celebrate it during the Christmas season. We can't celebrate it on December the 25th. I don't see anything wrong with celebrating it on December the 25th. Now, if you choose to not celebrate Christmas, I don't think there's anything wrong in that either. It is not a sin to say I'm not going to celebrate Christmas, because I don't believe that it is something that is honoring unto Jesus. And if you do choose to celebrate Christmas, my solid advice to you is celebrate it in a way that is worship unto Jesus, because that is what his original birthday was like. It was worship unto him, right? Either one that you choose to do, honestly, there's no right or wrong when it comes to whether you choose to redeem it or you choose to say, no, I'm not going to celebrate it. It's not sin to say I'm not celebrating Christmas season or Christmas holiday. And again, if you are going to celebrate it, you have to make sure that you don't enter into sinful behavior, but you actually worship Jesus in your Christmas celebrations, right? You actually put God first, seek his presence. You actually worship him this Christmas in your Christmas celebration. So that kind of brings us to the end of our study today on should Christians celebrate Christmas. Maybe you have questions, you can put it in the comment section. I would love to answer your questions. This is our last study for 2022. We will start again in 2023 with our Bible studies. And I do pray that this Christmas season is a safe one for you. It's an enjoyable one for you. It's one where you worship Jesus, for the Son of God came to this earth. He was born in the most humble of form, and he came to this earth. He dwelt among us to do something magnificent, where he took his own life and laid it down on the cross as a sacrifice in replacement for our life that was meant to be on the cross, because we were the ones that committed the sin. He did no sin, he did no wrong, but he took the penalty for us. So it is beautiful to worship Jesus for coming to this earth and being born to save humanity. And if that is how you are, if you are choosing to celebrate Christmas, that is how you should celebrate it. If you're not celebrating Christmas, that's fine as well. Right now, I think Christmas is a perfect time to evangelize. People are sensitive about the Christmas season, about the birth of Jesus. So I think it's a prime opportunity for Christians and for the church to tell people, hey, this is what Christmas is really about. It's not about Santa Claus. It's not about gifts. It's not about the tree. It's about Jesus, who came to the earth as the gift to humanity. And our gift back to him is to love him, to serve him, to worship him. All right. So that brings us to the end of this study today. And I do pray that you enjoy the rest of the day. If you're viewing this at day, enjoy the rest of the night. If you're doing this at night, viewing this at night, God bless you.